This is the parking lot of the Schoharie Reformed Church. It is Thursday, October 18, 2012, and this parking lot looks very different than it would have before the date of August 28, when Hurricane Irene caused massive flooding in 2011, and it's just over a year since then. We are still bustling with activity in recovery mode as the Center for Recovery Efforts for Schoharie specific and as a part of the Regional Coalition SALT. This is the volunteer recovery trailer for Schoharie Recovery. These sheds hold all the different materials for the rebuilding efforts. There's actually another bigger trailer behind here you can't see. The flood itself, the water line was actually right about where the blue under Building the Kingdom is, and the sign, it was about a foot under the roof line of this white building here, and which is in the parking lot, solid between 8 and 9 feet of water through the entire village of Schoharie. And this is the Schoharie Reformed Church Sanctuary building. Previously you saw the Heritage House, and this is the back wall, which is bowing partially, of the Schoharie Reformed Church Sanctuary and Fellowship Hall. What was the Fellowship Hall? The Fellowship Hall, complete commercial kitchen, actually used by a caterer and member of our congregation for catering, through those doors downstairs. 2 bathrooms, a brand new furnace that had never been fired up yet in both the Heritage House, and 2 separate, one in the Heritage House, one in the church, and everything is completely gone from the Fellowship Hall. It was completely gutted. There's not even framing down there anymore. It is a dark, dank cave. This is the sanctuary. A lot of people say to us, "Oh, are you recovered? Are you back to normal?" It's been over a year, and the answers to those things are no, not even close. And what is normal? Certainly we've developed new normals along the way. This sanctuary building, as far as being put back together, is still actually being, in a sense, torn apart, as we've had to rip more and more out to get to the bottom line of the structural issues that were exacerbated by the flood itself. The belfry, which is above that, normally is a big, beautiful organ that had actually just been refurbished 2 years ago, pipe organ, and that had to be taken apart in pieces and put the organ itself, we're hoping, will still be okay, but the ceiling above it, the belfry, over time has been sinking into the ceiling, and you can see the balcony itself is not exactly straight. So the building is sound, and we continue to use it on a regular basis for weekly worship. However, we need to fix it for the long haul of the next 100 years, several hundred years of the life of this community, and not needing to be concerned of what might happen with the next major event. So what has happened, initially we thought that this space had largely been spared. As you see, it sits up higher, and the water line was probably between 18 inches and 2 feet on the floor of the sanctuary. And initially, crews of volunteers cleaned out all of the mud and muck left behind. The pew cushions themselves were not underwater, but were so close to the water and were so damp and saturated with the putrid stink and stench and moldy, so to speak, that they needed to all be thrown out. And So we've had a cold sanctuary at times, and we've had a little bit uncomfortable in terms of the pews that are meant to have cushions on them don't. So there's a little couple extra inches of, oop, you made it onto the pew, and anyway, we make do. When we first found that we had to tear out the wainscoting, they found this old 1800s clapboard underneath there and thought, oh wow, that's really neat, and hoped that that could be saved. But then after the wettest fall in history, that clapboard actually had the outline of original pews from the 1800s, which were quite small and interesting to see. But as the wettest fall proved, things did not dry, and mold started accumulating, and that clapboard also had to be ripped out, as well as the same story with the floors. We cleaned and cleaned and cleaned and thought the floors might be okay, but mold grew between areas where there was this old recessed flooring, and so this old flooring then had to be exposed so it could be dried out, meaning the other flooring had to be ripped out. The same is true with the vestibule area, where we've still had to rip and rip and rip to figure out how to be able to shore up the front and the back walls and the foundation itself to fix some of these structural issues for the long term. The flooring in this front entryway, there was another layer there which also had to be tore out, and then recently in trying to figure out how to fix the floor of the balcony, now the ceiling here has even had to be tore out. So still over a year later, still we hope that we have fully torn out everything that we've had to tear out for the sanctuary itself. However, we have not started rebuilding the sanctuary part at all. We have several structural engineers and architects have been assisting with creating a plan for shoring up the walls. That architectural first steps plan has now been completed, and is out to bid. And that will be the first step. But again, all of this work over a year later, and still a long way to go on the sanctuary itself. Of course, this creates anxiety for the congregation and frustration, as we are the hub of recovery, yet our own facilities continue to be in terrible state of disrepair. But at the same time, we've maintained our mission and our vision and our togetherness, and continue to try to, as best we can, work through all of these issues together, that we might be built back up stronger together.